One. Okay. Good evening. I'd like to get your attention for just a moment. If we could all stand for a few moments here. I would like to introduce our guest this evening, Reverend Marcia Griffin, retired. Spiritual advisor for Unity Church, Grants Pass, Oregon. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Minister Jim Hafton of Medford, Oregon. Reverend Kimberly Hawkins, Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley, Medford, Oregon. Reverend Dr. Christina Collins, Sanctuary for Spiritual Living, Covina, California. I'll try to get this one right. Reverend Steve Van Meter, Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living, Grants Pass.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Perfect. Good evening, everyone. We talk back in my church. So good evening. All right. It's wonderful to meet you. I can't tell you how delighted I am to be here today. It is a thrill. When Steve called me and said, "Will you come?" There's only one answer for my beloved, and that is, of course. Steve and I go back a long ways. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but you give a minister a mic, you never know what's going to happen, okay? But I actually met Steve in 1996 in a church in Burbank. And he came into a class that I was teaching. I was in home office as the ecclesiastical coordinator there and teaching in the Burbank Church of Religious Science and doing a Sunday night service. And Steve came into class, and it was an immediate love affair, but not that type. It was the type of love affair that Spirit does for us, where we just know that we know each other. And we started a good friendship then. And at the time, I also was candidating, and I took the church in Covina. And Steve, it was a long ways for him to drive, so he wasn't real sure he wanted to do that. And then he came, this was, remember, years ago. He came and he visited, and he came to me later and said, "You know, I'd like to be with you, but everybody has gray hair, except for you." Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. So the law just knows how to handle that. I don't know. Notice. It's hair dye, honey. See? Yeah. I have a hairdresser I can set you up with.
Mine redone.
Yes, much shorter than I've ever seen it. I hope you didn't think it was going to be sober tonight. But he decided after he visited around to various churches that he was willing to make the drive. And he came to my church. He took practitioner training with me. He became a board member at my church. He knows church because he's volunteered in every way. And he had the calling to be a minister from the very beginning. And you are blessed, as I have been blessed, to have his friendship. And so I am deeply honored to be here. and easy drive. And, 2 days. Hey. Not a big deal. But I just bring you blessings from everyone that knows you. I have a list of people that have wanted me to send them to you, many of whom worked with you in home office. And because Steve at one point was in charge of all of our events in home office. And he began to say at that time that you are an event that God is having. I'm sure you've heard that. I remember when it got started. And that reminds me, see, my husband is set to remind me of the things I should say in every welcome. And the first one is turn off your cell phones. Thank you, sir. And that gives me the chance to introduce my husband, Jim Montgomery, who is also a practitioner. And it is just a deep, deep privilege to be with you today and celebrate this thing called spiritual community. It's what I love most in the world. And because I love Steve and because you love Steve, it's automatic that I would love you. And so I am delighted to meet my new family. I think at that point, I'm actually supposed to call up Sherry Davis. And you're doing our wonderful invocation. Absolutely.
I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. If not, perhaps you'd like to gaze out into the wilderness.
Nice.
Okay. So closing your eyes, becoming comfortable in your seat. Breathing in that breath of life. As we come together this day, we feel more deeply our connection to Spirit. We know that we are each an expression of the divine presence, living, moving, and being as us. We give thanks for all that has led to this moment and for all that is yet to come. We give thanks for all those who have sustained this community for the many past years and for the many more years to come. We give thanks for all who mentored us, for all who were and are our teachers, for those who spoke encouraging words when we needed them most. We give thanks for this Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living that has seen and embraced change and transformation. We give thanks for this minister and all he has given and will continue to share. For his dedication and commitment to our teaching, to this center, and to God, we are grateful. May the words I have spoken here today and the dreams we all share for this community be a beacon for us all. We are all one in this moment and each and every moment. I am filled with love and gratitude as we each become even more deeply committed to our beloved Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living, along with our ministry. Knowing that we are filled with possibilities and promises, I invite you to say with me.
So our sacred covenant prayer, it went like this, for those of you who may have forgotten it. I don't know how that could be, but, so here it is. There is only one life. This life is good. This life is God. This life is my life now. In knowing that I am one with this life that is God, I therefore know that I am one with all its blessed expressions, which includes the presence of a new minister for my beloved spiritual community, Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living. Because I know that the highest purpose of my new minister is to reveal God, I therefore know that my new minister is a revelation of God as wholeness. I further know that my new minister is the fulfillment of that which has been promised by God. For it is written, I dwell in wholeness. My spirit is the spirit of God. I now let my thought be of the wholeness of God and accept its manifestation with thanksgiving. As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister revealed before me as a loving, dynamic expression of spiritual truth. I now intend to experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself, for I am being inspired to live in an ever-increasing awareness of oneness with God. I am igniting my desire for spiritual learning and awakening the wisdom within me. I am revealing wholeness individually and collectively. I am delving deeply into the oneness of God through mystical studies. I am holding sacred the creative expression of God through music and arts. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know they are revealed in a way that expresses God and serves the highest and greatest good of all who are touched by their presence. I am grateful God is gracious, and so it is. So it is. And we read that every week.
Nice.
And some of us read it every day. So, Dr. Kathy Hearn, Reverend Dr. Kathy Hearn, was our facilitator for the co-creation process and the new minister co-creation process. And she wasn't able to be here, but she sent this letter to Reverend Stephen, since we did invite her for this wonderful event. Dear Reverend Stephen, I join in from afar with all who are celebrating your installation at Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living. What a great joy it was to learn that you were selected as senior minister of the center following the new minister co-creation process I was honored to facilitate. Having worked with you in years past, I know firsthand the consciousness, energy, and dedication you bring to all that you do. Your community is blessed to have you love and lead them. Given the fine group of leaders and congregants there, many wonderful years lie ahead for all. I know and accept that you are blessed in return for all your giving, that the path before you is filled with light, and that Spirit meets, guides, and directs every step you take. With love, Kathy Hearn. And from Dr. Larry King in Portland, he sent his congratulations and regrets that he couldn't be here, but he sent the lovely floral arrangement that's in the foyer. So that was Reverend Larry King. And this is a special letter. Some of you may have heard it a month or so ago when Stephen received it, but it's my privilege to read it now. Dear Reverend Stephen Van Meter, as my wife Pauline and I explained to you, being 86 and 88 years old, we are not traveling anywhere these days. So we will not be coming to your installation as the new minister at Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living. However, I cannot pass this occasion without some words of wisdom from your father. Get the Kleenex.
Why would this be different?
As a small child of 5 years of age, my parents took my younger sister and me to China. Since that time, my life has been aimed at a spiritual life of worshiping God and relating to the living Spirit Almighty. I found these words in a favorite book of mine and thought of how proud I am of you and your choice to become a minister. And so this excerpt reads, this is a world of great bounty. Look how many billions of people it has supported, not to mention all sorts of forms of life you can't even see and don't even know about are being supported by this biosphere. Beautiful. You are an integral part of it. You and every being is meant to be here. You belong here. Human beings are the most blessed species on the planet because you have free will and the capacity to manipulate your environment and create like no other species on this planet. And you can be grateful for that. How wonderful it is to create, to choose, and see the results of your choices, and to simply exist. There is a great pleasure and enjoyment in simply existing if you turn your attention to what your being is experiencing. There is gratitude in simply existing and experiencing life. You can always be grateful for that. You can also be grateful for all that you learn, for the evolution and growth that happens to every one of you. You couldn't possibly be alive and not grow and love and evolve. Sometimes you interfere with this growth and slow it down. But it's impossible for you to not grow toward greater goodness, greater intelligence, and greater capacities, greater strengths and talents. You evolve in so many ways. What a joy it is. What a joy it is. Can you experience your being rejoicing in that and being grateful for that? Your being loves to grow. It loves to experience. It even loves to experience the negative results of your choices, because that is how it grows. Your ego might not like those results. However, negative is in fact a concept the ego applies to experience. There is no such thing as negative. This good-bad judgment on the part of the ego is not the perception of your being. It is all good to this being that you are. Steve, when you come into alignment with the being that you are, you experience all life as good. The challenges, the growth, and disappointments. What fun. Steve, your being experiences all of it as fun. Challenges, yes. Growth, yes. It says yes to all of it. It loves all of it. It is grateful for all of it. Because when you are an eternal being, you love all experience. Any experience. Nothing can destroy you. Nothing can hurt you. Steve, you are an eternal being. That's who you really are. This eternal being embraces and loves every aspect of life, not just the so-called good experiences. It, your being, is grateful for all of it. Because when you are an eternal being, you love all experience. Any experience, nothing can destroy you, nothing can hurt you. You are an eternal being. That's who you really are. This eternal being embraces and loves every aspect of life, not just the so-called good experiences. Your being is grateful for all of it. Challenges and growth. Loves. The reason your being loves is because the Creator is love. There is nothing else here but love. So naturally, the ground of your being, that is the essence, the essential experience of your being, it is one of love. How grateful you can be that this universe, this creation, is based on love and goodness, and how grateful you can be that you are eternal. For after this relatively brief lifetime in third dimension, you will leave your body and take on a new form, perhaps another third dimension body, or perhaps a fourth dimensional body, and then you'll go around again and experience life again. I hope you read this over and over again. I love you, and I believe this is very, very true, Dad. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Spirit Sound.
Nice.
There's one power invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. It's mysterious until you know the truth. It's as simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of love in you and me. One power, one power, one power. We speak so many languages, different clothing, different colors, different names. But different is only dangerous when in your forget and in our hearts we're all the same. We'll remember once we close our eyes to see that such distances were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Hashem or heaven's door. It's Muhammad, it's your mind, it's your soul or it's your sign. It's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth or Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, one power, one power. It's what we are. One power, one power, just one power. It's the moment of creation. It's the everlasting peace. It's the freedom of forgiveness and the sweetness of release. It's the joy of inspiration. It's the sunshine on your face. It's the birthright of all nations. It's the boundlessness of space. It's the beauty of the baby, the serenity of sleep. It's the anger we abandon for its love that's most deep. It's one power, yeah, yeah. It's one power, it's what we are. It's the power of the love that lives forever in you and me. It's the power of the love in you and me. One power, just one power, one power. That's what we are.
This selection of Reverend Stevens is one that I feel should be delivered from memory. But Miss Gray had said you'd be walking on dangerous ground. So you're going to have it the way that I'm going to do it. Now, this is serious. If one would know God, he must penetrate deeply into his own nature, for here alone can he find him. If he would reveal God to his fellow men, he must do so by living such a godlike life that the divine essence flows through him to others. The only way to know God is to be like him. And while this may seem discouraging in our present state of evolution, we should remember that we have got started on an eternal ladder, whichever spirals upward.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It is so special to be here. I'm honored to be asked to be a part of this ceremony. And we are sister communities, and I feel that. It's so great. I've been asked to read our Declaration of Principles. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one manifests itself in and through all creation, but it is not absorbed by its creation. The manifest universe is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. We believe in the individualization of the Spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one Spirit. We believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul, forever and ever expanding. We believe that heaven is within us, and that we experience it to the degree that we become conscious of it. We believe the ultimate goal of life to be a complete freedom from all discord, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. We believe in the unity of all life, and that the highest God and the innermost God is one God. We believe that God is personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. We believe in the direct revelation of truth through our intuitive and spiritual nature, and that anyone may become a revealer of truth who lives in close contact with the indwelling God. We believe that the universal spirit, which is God, operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, and that we are surrounded by this creative mind, which receives the direct impress of our thought and acts upon it. We believe in the healing of the sick and the control of conditions through the power of this mind. We believe in eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of life to all. We believe in our own soul, our own spirit, and our own destiny, for we understand that the life of all is God.
Yeah. Next to me. Well, again, good evening, and I'd like to start by saying, good manifestation. Good work. I always knew you were a good practitioner, a magnificent minister, you know. I also want to congratulate you as a community for holding the awareness and the consciousness, being willing to do the work with Kathy Hearn, and being willing to do the work without her that reinstated it week after week. What a great job. And I also want to say, pretty stunning Zen garden. You guys just did that today, you know. Yeah. Yeah. So, not every community will say, let's have a big ceremony and, have a reception afterwards. And by the way, we'll put in a Zen garden, get ready. Yeah. Did you paint? Really, I just want you to know that's magnificent. And you have shown yourselves to be a community that knows how to love each other and knows how to work together. This is something that not all communities know how to do. And so I want you to know that that makes you exceptional and wonderful. And it's probably because you have practiced religious science. You have decided to take a look at those principles and say, how do we work these for good, consciously and aware? And you have decided that even in the times that might not be so fun, that you would stay together. And sort of your father said, it's all good whether or not it looks it or not, whether your ego says, oh my, or not. You have decided that that is who you want to be. And you have decided something very, very important, and that is to be community. And I love that term, because I look at community and it's about union and what we hold in common. And that space of how do we become intentional about building community is the thing that you have done. And so I'm going to just remind you of some of the principles of community. I do this with my church periodically. Actually, they get it at least once a year because new people come in. And people pass and they move and they retire and all the things that happen. And so one of the natures of community is its fluidity. The fact that we have to find the way to continue something that consciously aware, and we have to know how to educate the people that come in and how to continue to do something very, very deep. And that is to bond together and to find a way to be inclusive. I've actually had people tell me that they had never heard the word inclusive until I used it. I thought that was interesting. Most of us know the term exclude, right? So, and inclusive is clearly the opposite of that. Inclusive is about being willing to embrace the allness of us. And your title of your theme today is the spiritual journey of oneness. That speaks to spiritual community. It speaks to the fact that we're willing to be together. When we are inclusive, one of the things that's real about that is not only are we inclusive of people that don't necessarily look exactly like us, whether they have white hair or not. He didn't then, and because he showed up, I had people in my community that showed up that were like, oh, there's somebody else there that looks like me. And so one of the beautiful things about community is when you look out and you say, somebody's there that looks like me. I can be here. I can be part of this. And so that space of being inclusive of all the different ways that we are, that humankind shows up. And being willing to also be, and this one's a little harder, to also be inclusive of all of our different experiences. And so we begin to not model experiences, oh, this one's good and that one's bad. You can talk about this when you can't talk about that. When I first got to my church, this is a long time ago, my church was founded in 1955. There was a time period in religious science, that Ernest Holmes did not teach this, but there was a time period in religious science where it had become fashionable to not talk about illness to the point that if you were dying, you didn't say it. And, that's not good. And so what became, I knew people, I knew ministers that actually felt that they had to retire because they had an illness and could not be supported by their spiritual community because they had something going on physically and therefore they were in malpractice. And I want you to know that we don't do that anymore. We haven't done that in a while. I see some people that go, oh, I remember that. And others that are going, thank God, that's not how we are anymore. And so this space of being inclusive of our experiences, when do you need spiritual community more than when you are in those moments where you might be judging your own experience, or where you might be tempted to judge the experience of your church, or of the experience of the nation and its politics, or the experience of the world as it does whatever it does, you know? And what we know is all of it. All of it. The beauty of it is it's all about our spiritual growth. Every bit of it. And paying attention to how I'm thinking when I think about all the different experiences, and how do I come to the place where I realize the divine is in every single one. Every experience, every person, every place, everything. And when I come to that spot, I can become a blessing in the world. And so that's what we look to. My way of doing that is to notice that some days I'm out of line with it, and some days I'm in line with it. You know, it's all just practice. So we don't have to judge ourselves, we don't have to judge each other based on experience. Another piece that is sometimes difficult for us in being inclusive is to be willing to be inclusive of emotion. You know, I also remember when religious science would say this is a positive emotion, this is a negative emotion. All emotion is energy in motion. Therefore, all emotion is simply neutral. It's our judgment. And when we are willing to be inclusive of emotion, we become a safe place for people to be. We become a safe place for us to grow. We become a safe space to be part of the one. So inclusiveness is a challenge, and it demands that we hang tight. And I want to tell you, I honor your commitment that you made to your community, both during the process of recreation and also the time that it took to get a new minister. And then you did something really wonderful. You dated for a while. I've always said, you know, they call it candid dating for a reason. You're dating, you know. So you date for a little bit, and you talk back and forth, and you ask those 20 questions, or 50, or 150, and you find out, is there a match here? Is there a match between these values, this person's values, and the values of this community? And you clearly decided that there was a match with Steve. And then you decided that you'd get engaged. And he moved. You know, I know how that is. So, you know, he moved. He said, I like these people. I'm willing to get engaged. I don't want to stand in front of you as you look at everyone. I may go back over there for notes, but who knows. But you decided that you were willing to be engaged, and you spent some time. Was it a year? Yeah, over a year. You spent some time really getting to know each other, really finding out how do we work together. Because when you first asked Steve to come here, you were already a family. And you said, we like this guy, we'd sort of like to invite him into the family. Probably at least 50% of you said that. The other 50% said, I used to work in home office, okay? I worked in the gyms department where I had among many other opportunities, I had the opportunity to work with churches in that position and to work with ministers yearning to be in their perfect church and yearning to move through the process and then coming to realize that not everybody voted for him. It's like, oop, I thought they all loved me. And I worked, I was also blessed, this is a sideline, but I was also blessed, and one of my encouragements to all of you is to simply say yes. When you're asked to volunteer to do something, when you know that it's something you've never done before and you don't know how to do it, say yes anyway. It's a learning process. And I was blessed, I don't know how to create curriculum, but I was blessed to be asked to facilitate the writing of the Practitioner One curriculum, and it's still being used by our movement, and that was like 20 odd years ago. I've been in church it's about 25 years ago. We really need an update. But just say yes, because you will find that it grows you. It's okay to be nervous and scared. That's part of being able to take in everything. It's all right to feel uncomfortable. That's part of growth. It's okay to have a disagreement, and it's okay to have a different opinion. What's important is if you have a different opinion with any person, that you go to that person and talk about it. You don't go to somebody else and talk about it. And so it's really important. We have that as a requirement, by the way, in the practitioner curriculum and also in the practitioner code, that if you got a problem, you go talk to the person it's with. You don't go like, can I talk to them over there because I'm intimidated or afraid. So if you've got something to say to Steve, say it to Steve. And if you have something to say to any of them, say it to them. Earlier today, I showed that I was too blunt for words. The people that were in the ministerial room know that. But, I used to be tactful. I gave that up for honesty. These true confessions. I actually gave it up for honesty. And, so sometimes, we're not always diplomatic in the way we tell our truth, but we need to tell our truth. And, we want to not hurt feelings, but we also need to be clear. And so your work is to notice that I have something to say, and then to figure out what it is that I have to say, to neutralize the judgment and emotion around it, so that I can say it without any anger or fear in my heart. Because then I can say it with love. And feedback helps ministers. I've seen a lot of ministers isolated, and it doesn't help. Feedback helps ministers. He'll probably dislike the fact that I said this later. It helps us because we are human beings. And we are here to grow and to become the best human beings that we can. We are here to become the best people of spiritual practice that we can be. But just like you, it has to happen within the realm of spiritual community. And so when we become willing to be committed, think about this for those of you that are married or have been married or wish you were married. Everybody in the room? Is that where we are? Okay. Just think about this. The fact that when you get married, which is what you're doing today, when you get married, you have to say, I'm going to stay. I am committed to the relationship that stands above the you and the me that are getting married. So you have to think about what happens when, and everybody's experienced this, so I know that you'll understand, but think about what happens when you say, I'm going to take my ball and go home. I'm going to leave. Or I'm not going to say what I need to say, I'm going to withhold it. What happens is that it rips the fabric of the relationship. And the same is true in spiritual community. The fact that someone in a group may withhold what they have as their gift to give because they feel like it's not the right thing to say, it's not politically correct, it's not whatever are the judgments we have about our thing. Whenever we withhold, we may not mean to withhold love, but we do. And we may not mean to withhold spiritual wisdom, but we do. And so it takes us being willing to be here and to be honest and to be committed to the relationship that I have and that you have inside this thing called spiritual community. It takes us being willing to show up and to share what we know. Because when we do that, we keep the clarity and the flow that is between us and the other person in the community, and the community as a whole. When we are committed, there's something we have to give up. We have to give up the idea that I'm going to heal somebody else. This is sort of confusing in religious science because we know that the law heals, and we know that we can heal ourselves and that we can assist each other in healing. We know that we can talk to a practitioner or a minister and that we can have sessions and that we can heal. And we think that it happens because of what the other person does. But it really happens because we show up for each other and we hear each other and we love each other. And when we do that, we give up the judgment that says you need to be healed. And we begin to realize that lying at the very center of being is that is the divine. And that's what practitioners do. I know you know that. That is what practitioners do. Ministers. We stand and look and say, what magnificence. Even in the middle of what looks like chaos, what magnificence is here. And by being willing to step beyond the idea that there is a healing that needs to happen, something amazing goes on. Healing happens. Not because it's being imposed by someone else, but because there's no longer a block that would keep the inner wisdom from being revealed within you. And so when a community gives up the idea that they have to be there to heal each other, suddenly everybody gets healed. Is that just like odd? And yet it's true that space of being willing to become a safe place by being willing to stay, by being willing to have self-examination as a spiritual practice, by being willing to be inclusive of each other. And then you become a community of leaders. And this is something else that is important. Sometimes the people that have been holding the space of leadership in a community in the time between ministers get so worn out that the new minister comes in, they go, here, take it all. And, we all deserve a vacation, so I understand that. But the space of recognizing that when you come into your own spiritual ability and your own spiritual knowledge, you also develop leadership. And this is the safe place that allows you to grow that quality. Now, the beauty is when you grow that quality of leadership within your own community by volunteering and by showing up on the board and by being practitioners and by bringing food. I understand you guys do food better than any other church on the planet. I'm going to check tonight because my church does food really well. So we'll have a contest here. And but I mean, how wonderful, right? And when you show up in all those different ways, whether you are placing the chairs to have the sanctuary sanctified for Sunday, or whether you are showing up to assist in a class or do whatever it might be that you're doing, when you show up in that volunteer thing, you're building within you the muscle of leadership. And as that comes forward, it will also expand you in your workplace. For those of you that have not retired yet, it will expand you in the workplace. For those of you that have retired, it's going to expand you in your community and in your community service, not just to this church, but to your community as a whole. And all of our communities need that. And so you become more as you are willing to show up and to give what you have to give. We all have gifts, and being willing to include the gifts of everyone. and to do it without judgment, because you know, it's like Steve is highly organized. He used to have to run events at home office. That's a challenge. But he said something brilliant today. He says, this is what we do. We get everything down to the minute, and then we let it flow. Because he knows he can't take my microphone. But you become a genuine community of leaders, and that experience, this whole experience of community, ultimately is this experience of spirit, the one love that is in each one of us, the one love that is the reason we're on the planet. That love that yearns to be experienced and expressed through each one of you. As you allow yourself to feel that and then to be that, something is transformative, and that's the one that is the theme of your time tonight. The journey of community is the journey into oneness, the journey into learning how to love deeply and completely. And that's what you've said you want. That's what you've said you want. And so here you are in this beautiful place. And one of the things, some of the ideas that I've used today have come from the book, The Different Drum, Community Making and Peace by M. Scott Peck. It's an old book, but it's brilliant. And so I'm older too, so I'm willing to use things that are aging nicely. But one of the things that M. Scott Peck says about community is that ultimately, when you move into that space, that you just want to hug each other. That you just want to reach out and do this huge group hug. Individuals, the whole group, that's that. I breathe in, I love myself. I breathe out, I love the world. And I love each other. And that is what begins to happen. Yep, my church had an experience over the weekend, and Steve knows about this. And so, you know, we had this experience where we came to church and 4 of our air conditioning units were stolen. I'm talking about the big things on the outside. Yeah. It's like, really? How do you lift that up and run down the street, right? You know, whoa. Yeah, that was interesting. So that happened. And, you know, I'm looking at these things and I'm thinking, okay, well, now what do we need to do? It's Memorial Day, and I got to figure out how to make the church safe tonight, or they'll make off with the next 3. We'll be totally airless, you know. And, you know, and so I'm like, what do we do? Well, I clearly need security guards for at least the moment. I'm not going to need those forever, but I need them for at least the moment. And, you know, I called one of the people that I know inside our community, and he said, I know somebody that owns a company. And this is 5:30 at night on Memorial Day night. And at midnight, I'm talking to him. And as I'm talking to the man that's the security guard, now the first thing I did was, he's the owner of the company, the first thing I did was greet him the same way I greet each of you. Come on in here, I got to give you a hug, honey. You showed up, you know? And so you just hugged them, and we begin to tell them, you know, this is what's going on. I'm not in judgment about it, I just know I have to deal with it. I need somebody tonight. And I'm so grateful. And he said, well, we were going to give you a special deal for security at $20 an hour. It's usually like $45. And but tonight we're going to give you 3 guards, and you can't sign the contract because I'm going to rewrite it, because we're going to give this to you at cost. Blessing. Blessing. Then I, of course, you know, needed to talk to my air conditioning guy, so he showed up. He called. I'd left a message on his phone, and he called me first thing Tuesday morning, and he showed up at 9 o'clock. I'd just been there at 2, so you know, so we were there. I didn't look this good. You know, when you get older, makeup is more important. But I showed up and told him what happened and showed him, and this man's been doing our stuff for a long time. And he said, I'll get you a bid. And I said, thank you. And as we were driving up here, he's donating all the labor, saving us about $5,000. Love one another. It's worth it. That's not the reason. It's worth it because you get the experience of love. You get the experience of love. The only way you can experience God is to experience love. The Bible says God is love. That's a very simple statement. The kingdom of heaven is within. That's the only place we experience love. Allow yourself to love one another. Allow yourself to love Steve. He's very lovable. I know you know that. And allow yourself to be spiritual community. Continue to do what you're already doing. Get it. You're already it. So marvelous. So I need to look now. That's all I have to say. But I told you I'm sort of blunt. Oh, I see we have music again. Wonderful. Thank you. I love you, honey.
Okay, so I hadn't counted on the computer going to sleep. You ready? By request. I'm through asking where I'm going. I've been asking all my life. I've grown tired of always wondering when everything seems to turn out right. So when my mind needs something to do, wants to know the future, I whisper this: I'm okay. I've always been, and I'll always be that way. So here goes nothing. I'm taking a chance. I'm opening up, knowing that I'm in good hands. And here goes everything. It's all on the line. Oh, but I'm not afraid this time. Some say it's crazy, some say naive, to close our eyes and take the lead. But we know better, 'cause we believe. Even in the dark, our souls can see. So when my mind plays its usual games, oh, my answer is always the same. Here goes nothing. I'm taking the chance, opening up, knowing that I'm in good hands. And here goes everything. and I'll always be that way. I'm okay. I've always been, and I'll always be that way.
Are they with you every Sunday? Something else you did good. Marvelous. Spirit songs, sound. Spirit sound.
Treasure, Jim, Dave, and Chip's around here somewhere.
Back there. All right.
Musicians.
How marvelous. What a blessing you are. There are things that can be found in music that cannot be found in the spoken word. And the emotion that can be released is magnificent. So I really, really thank you for sharing your gift like that. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm supposed to do something formal now. I know that's hard to believe. There are a few things that religious science think are worthy of ceremony. This is one of them. And because of that, we write out ceremonies for them just so that people like me can get reined in. I think that might be it. I'm not sure. It used to be so much nicer. Okay, so there's a formal part to this, and it's my privilege to have the honor of doing this portion of the ceremony. I do this on behalf of Centers for Spiritual Living because they see that something important is happening here. And so it's my honor to preside today over this important moment in the life of this church. I still use church. I know it's popular now to use center. I'm more along the lines of if it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, if it... You know, Ernest Holmes liked to say he wasn't doing church, but he did songs, he did prayer, he did message, he did offering. It looks like church to me. Okay, I'll be quiet now. Ernest Holmes, with his vision and through his writing, lit the torch of religious science. Those who have carried it since believed in the same principles which we have declared today as our own. Thank you for making that so beautiful. They knew, as we know, that these principles are impersonal and universal, that they work for all without exception. And they knew, as we know, that the power of the universe responds to the faith of all people, regardless of the name by which that faith may be known or the organization to which it belongs. God is no respecter of labels, and I love the way the Bible puts that. God is no respecter of persons. The law works, and works for all alike. Religious science does not own the corner on truth. You do own a nice spot right here on the corner, though. I want you to... It's probably unthinkable that I'm not going to ad lib. Okay. You really have a beautiful, beautiful facility. Congratulations. It's a good thing. We do know that an illuminated consciousness, a trained mind, and an open heart together create the greatest adventure through which the universal power can flow. So there is good reason to celebrate today. The installation of those who carry the torch and declare the principles as well as illuminate the consciousness, train the minds, and open the hearts of those who come and learn and apply the science of mind in their lives. Your church operates on a number of different, it's like a chair. It has to have 4 legs to be stable. One leg is the minister. Another leg is the volunteers. If you don't have volunteers in your church will not come together. It will not happen. Another leg are your practitioners that support things. Another leg that's very important is your board of trustees. Because without their leadership and their good business sense, you will not be able to prosper and move forward well. And so these are who we install tonight. I think we need a fifth leg called, it's probably the back, that is the musicians that we lean up against when we want to be filled with that inspiration. Yes. On the larger, more impersonal level, this church is the natural outcome of the consciousness of the men and women far removed from this place and this evening. These are the ones that founded your church. These are the ones that came here before, who created the shoulders that you stand on. It is even more than that. This church is, in fact, nothing less than the culmination of a divine ideal in the mind of God. We are here about something, as great as I think Steve is, we are here about something bigger than Steve, and that is this community. On a more intimate level, it is the direct revelation of an idea in the minds of those who dreamed it, who established it, who nurtured it and grew it, who have been willing to be its heads, its hands, its heart, its feet. That is you, the membership. And Steve's a member, just like you. Today we install another generation of leadership, one who by Steve, who by his willingness will add to the already vibrant growth of this church. The ministers, board of trustees, the licensed practitioners, congregation, and friends, we are celebrating, we are gathered here today and celebrating here today. We're installing this minister of religious science, Reverend Steve Van Meter, as an official minister of this member community. Official notification has been received from the Centers of Spiritual Living in Colorado for that Steve Van Meter is your choice. You are wise. I'm not prejudiced. I just know a good thing when I see it. Reverend Steve has met all of the requirements of ministerial licensing by our organization. He has been fully ordained by our organization. That means he's done this for more than a day. This is good. And as the new leader of the Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living, he shall act in the following capacities in fulfilling the ministerial office. He serves as a spiritual leader, director, senior minister of the congregation, and a counselor to all who come to him for assistance. He serves as an official and accredited teacher of the Science of Mind classes under the authority of a church covenant with the Centers for Spiritual Living. Every minister of religious science must first have received license and recognition as a practitioner before they may be licensed or ordained as a minister. Therefore, he serves always as a practitioner to the needs of the people when the call is made. They may not realize this, but you and I know this. That's at 2 a.m. some days. Yeah. That's at the bedside of a beloved member that is making their transition and then an hour or two later giving a Sunday service. That is about loving so deeply that you are empowered to do all things that are yours to do. And that you have the wisdom to know what is not. And that when it's not, you say no. You all just heard that. So I now present to the Board of Trustees and the congregation to be duly installed as the official minister of Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living, Reverend Steve Van Meter. So I have some things I'm supposed to charge you with,
Okay.
as if I haven't been doing that your whole life. It's not always easy to know me. Reverend Steve, do you accept these principles and promise to adhere to them and to make them the basis of your teaching?
I do.
I'm going to ask you a lot of things. You get to
I
say that
do.
a lot. Okay. Did I tell you he was my sound guy? Yeah. Yeah, he was my sound guy. He created all the sound at my church that so badly needed it. Do you so consecrate yourself to this ministry that you will do your utmost at all times to reflect the Christ within in all that you think, say, and do?
I will.
Do you so dedicate yourself that you will be consciously aware of the Spirit within all people, and that you will see only the perfect spiritual person, perfect in mind, body, and spirit?
I will.
Do you promise to minister faithfully and lovingly to the people now committed to your charge, and to seek ever to be an example of moderation, patience, and loving kindness?
I do.
Thank you. May the infinite Spirit, I'm going to do this official, okay? May the infinite Spirit that empowers you to do all these things grace you with the strength faithfully to perform the same and to live the principles of this teaching and our Centers for Spiritual Living organization. Now, I would like your board to join us. And so perhaps it's easiest if the Board of Trustees stand in place. Is that a good thought? Or do you,
Yes, just
you don't want them up? Okay. Okay. See, you're lucky. He doesn't want me to like call you up here and, you know. Okay. And so you six and you are the Board of Trustees. Are you a voting member on that board? Yay. Smart. Okay. So we now present to you these individuals, and this is for each of you in the audience to know your board. We now present to you these individuals who have been duly elected to serve as your Board of Trustees. I greet each one of you. What an honor. Not only do these board members oversee the business affairs of your church, but their individual and collective awareness establishes a consciousness for the entire congregation. Recognizing the authority you have entrusted to them, we now charge them with this responsibility. And so, to each of you, including Steve, do you promise to follow the light of truth, seeking at all times to be aware of what is right rather than who is right? Do you accept Reverend Steve as the minister of your church and as your spiritual leader and teacher? Thank you. Will you support Reverend Steve in his endeavors, visions, and decisions to further the consciousness of this center and community? Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. I want to thank each of you. I spoke with your board president at the time that you were considering Steve, and I feel like I have known all of you, although I may be meeting you for tonight for the first time. And I really thank you for the wisdom that you've used, not only during the time without a minister, but also in the times before that and the times that are to come. Thank you. It's time now for us to ask your practitioners to stand. And I'm going to, God forbid that I would, be too informal here, but you have several people that are about to be paneled as practitioners. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And I would like them to stand also. Because as you increase the consciousness of this church through the training that you've received, you deserve to be recognized tonight also. I want to thank our present practitioners and our practitioner emeritus who have been wise enough to guide this church for so many years and for so long in religious science. Each of you bring a light that is remarkable. It's easy to see. This minister knows and understands the role of licensed practitioner, and it is to be part of the ecclesiastical team, establishing and maintaining a continual consciousness of the spiritual vision of this church. You also carry out most of your work in the great and powerful silence. The fruits of this work are manifested as demonstrations in the lives of yourself, your clients, and your church. For all practitioners are charged by the practitioner code to include in their daily prayers, prayer for the prosperity and the growth of their church and for their minister. And I trust that you do that. Do you consecrate yourself to this church's spiritual vision and activity? Thank you. Do you accept Reverend Steve as the minister of this church? He's been writing Stephen the whole time. Are you?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Spirit wrote.
Yeah. Are you going by Stephen here? Or you cut your hair. Anything's possible.
Steve is fine.
Steve is fine. It's hard to change an old dog. Do you accept Reverend Steve as the minister of this church and as your spiritual leader and teacher? Thank you. Thank you. Will you support Reverend Steve in all his endeavors, his visions, and decisions to further the consciousness of this center and this community? Thank you. Thank you. Believe it or not, I can hear each one of you. Thank you. You may be seated. And so now, each member of this church, if you would please rise. Everyone who is a member of this church. That's impressive. I would love for the guy with the camera to come all the way up on stage. I'm one of those ministers when they take pictures at weddings, I'm like, stand on my back. Get the crowd. This is beautiful. Take this in, Steve. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You have marvelous energy and light. I can see that and feel it. Thank you so much for being willing to have it here. You are the voice of this church and community. You are the ambassadors of religious science into this community that is called Grants Pass. You are the backbone as the volunteers giving service to this center. This church cannot do its work without you. Do you promise to uphold and practice the principles of religious science moment by moment to the best of your ability? Please answer, we do. We do. Thank you. Do you accept Reverend Steve as a minister of this church and as a spiritual leader and teacher? We do. Thank you. Will you support Reverend Steve in his endeavors, his visions, and decisions to further the consciousness of this church and this community? We do. Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. I would like any ministers that are present here today to please stand. Any of our ministers. We do not do our work alone in religious science. We need our colleagues. We need to be able to talk with each other and to be with each other. We need to draw on each other's experience. And so it is important that as colleagues we are here to support one another. And so as colleagues, do you promise to give your friendship, your love, and your affirmative prayers to Reverend Steve?
I do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. You may be seated. There's a bigger group of people here. It's not in here. There's a bigger group of people here that also support you, and they are guests. They're here for one reason or another. And so would anyone that is here as a guest this evening please rise? You are important also. I want you to know that you are important, that you as a witness to what has happened today, carry in mind something for this community, whether you ever know anything more about them or not. Whether you decide to come back on a Sunday or not, you carry something within your heart now because you have borne witness to a wedding of a minister and a community. Steve gets to be like bride or groom, I don't know what you want to call it. They usually refer to communities as she, and in the Bible they call churches she, and so usually the church gets to be the bride. But it's all good. He knew this when he asked me. You bear witness to this, so you know something in your heart, and I ask you to hold this church and this union that we are seeing today in your heart always. Will you do that? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. Hi, honey. Through the authority that has been vested in me by the Centers of Spiritual Living, and as the senior minister and the spiritual leader of the Sanctuary for Spiritual Living in Covina for 23 years, hard to believe. Hard to believe. Acting on behalf of this congregation, I install you here as the minister of the Grants Pass Church of Religious Science, with all the rights and privileges and the obligations that are in this office called minister. I want you to touch, to heal by knowing who they really are, and minister to these beautiful people. You do that from the heart, and I know your heart, Steve. Beyond all things, I know that your heart is great. And so I want to simply say, peace be with you, my dear friend. Accept all the love. You deserve every bit of it because you are a man of great love. Yeah!
So that's what that feels like. Oh, zinger. I do. You know, you promise yourself you're not going to do this, right? And then you do it, and then you go, okay, just be with me for a second while I do this. 'Cause
Honey, can we share this moment?
So I prepared a couple words. 2 hours. I have 2 hours.
I have all the time you want.
Bad. I don't mean the one to write with. I mean the one to sleep on. So I just want to thank each and every one of you that's here or watching the video, because there's really only one of us here, and it's God. I'm a passionate, honest, loving man dedicated to enrolling you in your vision. That's why I was born. That's why I'm here. I want to thank you, my new spiritual family, for accepting me and allowing me to express myself in spirit here, in this beautiful place. And I know that some people have left because I'm here, and some new people have come because I'm here. And it's all okay. It's all perfect. And you want everyone to love you, but some love you by leaving. As difficult as it is for a minister to be okay with that, I know that people need to go where they are fed. And if I'm not your flavor, I pray you will find your flavor somewhere. But for those of you that like this flavor, we have a lot of beautiful work to do. A lot of beautiful experiences to have together. Let's learn to love at depth. You know, as long as we can all fly in the same direction together, we have a really good experience. And for those that you're flying in different directions, that's okay too. It's okay too. As Wayne Dyer says, don't die with your music inside you.
Yeah.
And I am here to help you write the music. And you're helping me write the music. Let's, as a community, a calm unity, learn to play well together. Speak only love. There's a lot of other things going around right now. Just turn that off. Just turn that remote control to the off position and go outside and commune with nature. That's my political party. That's all I'm saying. Nature is my political party.
Yeah.
So I want to just remind everybody to sign my little guest book that's out there, because I want to know, I'm trying to capture this. I've got 3 video cameras going, DVD, CD, I'm going to send it to my dad because he couldn't be here. But there's nothing like being here right now. You are the people that are supposed to be here, or you wouldn't be. This is perfect. We do have a new Zen garden. Please visit it. It is spectacular. I mean, the dirt yesterday that was transformed into a Zen Buddha haven, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I spend a lot of time here. I'm going to spend a lot of time out there. I urge you just to take a look at what they did, because it's incredible. So, Nancy, could you put the slide up for me? There's a lot of people I want to thank, and I'd like to go through my Oscar list. I'm not going to. But thank everyone. Thank you for just showing up. If this is your first time here, thank you for sitting in your seat for 2 hours. But we have a lot of food to eat and a lot of experiences to do. So I just want to thank you all, because as a minister, if nobody shows up, it's just me talking to myself. So, thank you for believing in me enough to continue coming back and seeing what I do Sunday after Sunday, because there's only one message.
Yeah.
It's all love. And every Sunday I look to try to make it different. All of us ministers do.
Yeah.
But that's the only message there is. But keep coming back. I want to be your favorite flavor. Okay? That's all I have to say. Thank you. I love you. And let's make beautiful music together. So,
Oh, it's my benediction. I'm amazed you had the courage to have me up one more time. I want to thank you for the honor to be here. I want to thank you for all of the hospitality that you have given. And I would invite you simply to close your eyes if it is comfortable, or to take a beautiful, soft focus on this beautiful mural. And as you allow yourself to move deeper within, to know simply and easily that God is here, present in this moment. Divine love in this very moment, embracing each and every one of us, living as us, through us, around us, here in this oneness that is called spiritual community. That perfect love that knows how to express itself in light, in song, in communication, in community. This amazing love that has blessed this day, that has created it, is now blessing it, and is allowing for the good that is itself to be brought forward in all of the days ahead. For this radiance not only fills this sanctuary this evening, but it permeates the walls, blesses the ceiling and the carpet, embraces every chair, and permeates each and every person. And so it is permanent. It is here, with a vibrant energy that opens up Sunday, that it makes each person say, I am home. And so with a deep sense of thanksgiving for all of the good this day, for Reverend Steve and each and every person in every role that is played here, the Board of Trustees, the practitioners, the musicians, the volunteers, everyone that has shown up, the guest, the people that bear witness to the good that has been done, and keep it in the sacred memory of God, with a deep sense of blessing and thanksgiving for the honor that it is to be here and alive. I release this gently into the law with love, knowing it's already done. And with thanksgiving I say, and so it is. Amen, amen.
Ta-da!
You